I'm with Reggie Parks, who is a former professional wrestler. Actually, is known as a shooter, one of the legitimate professional wrestlers, and he was also involved in the making of many titles. So, for those that aren't familiar with you, do you want to tell us a bit about your career?
Well, it started a belt-making career in 1960, and since then, I've had some real good friends, and they've set me up with the name of the King of Belts, and it's kind of stuck with me, and people know me by that. And I retired from wrestling, about 1982. Right now I'm 24 years old. So anyway, we come up here every year and see the boys and see a lot of guys, the ones that are still around, and a lot of them aren't anymore, but whoever I come and see, everybody's happy to see me, and I'm happy to see them.
What's the key to making a good quality title?
The belt business, I guess you'd call it trial and error. I started making those things in 1962 in Omaha, Nebraska, when I was part of the tag team champions there, and the promoter there had this huge trophy. You couldn't put it in the car; you'd have to take it apart and haul it around. It was really a pain. So he said, "Joe, we got to make a couple of belts here in place of this thing you got here." So he said, "Well, if you make something that's presentable, we'll try and use it." So my belt was presentable, and from there they went to Minnesota and to Canada. Dick Byers, the Destroyer, took a belt to Japan, and I did a lot of business with Japan, making belts in different countries, like all over Europe. And, you name it. Japan was a pretty good business partner there for quite a while, and so I had the whole market cornered here when I first started. And now, since the Chinese got their hands on my belts, and they've made a lot of belts with my design, so we've got some lawyers and we charged them for you know what, so they have to pay me a little bit for them now. But that's a good thing, and keep me out of the poorhouse when I retire.
And you were known as being a very legitimate professional wrestler. What was your amateur wrestling background?
I did 4 years of it. I started out about 13, 14 years old until I was about 16, 17, and at that age I had my first professional, if you call it that, a bunch of local guys up there in Canada putting some bouts together, and I remember making $3.50 for my first fight. And of course they were, the tickets then were like 50 cents a piece. It was just a small crowd, but it was something. Got my foot in the door there. Then I ended up on a carnival taking on all comers. Because I had a good amateur background, I could handle some of these guys. So it got a little, once in a while, it's going up through British Columbia up there in Canada, and get out these lumberjacks, strong as a bull, but they run out of gas in about 2 minutes, so they, get to handle them do whatever you want with them. So. And that was I learned more in that carnival than I think I did all the time I went to school. It's a really educational thing. Of course, I probably learned all the wrong things, but that was okay.
And who's your favorite opponent over the years?
Well, after 50 years in the business, I've run across a lot of guys. Well, opponents, we would say, like, drawing power for a bad guy would be Mad Dog Vachon, and he was one of the better ones. And let's see who else. Let's see. Oh, well, I've been in the ring with all of them. I got in the ring 2 or 3 times with Luthez. And I'll tell you a funny story. 1960, I wrestled him here in Las Vegas. And the newspaper came out in the clipping that I beat Luthez 2 straight falls. And nobody in the history did that. An obvious mistake. And if anybody knows where I could find the copy of that newspaper, I'd sure like to have it.
Now, I'm going to guess he didn't mess with you too much in the ring, because I heard that Luthez sometimes could be a little rough.
Yes. He was one of the best, and his talent and know-how, and he was like world champion when he was like 18, 19 years old. And he was, I mean, you look at the years on that guy compared to mine. He was really, I mean, he was something else. You know, I got in the ring with him. He was like, he could put holds on himself, and you'd know how the hell did that happen? You know,
Who do you think would have won in a legitimate fight between Thez and Vachon? Because those are 2 of the toughest ever.
Oh, well, Lou's credentials. Mad Dog was in the 48 Olympics, and so he had a good background, and he was just a wrestler. He could fight, and he'd rather fight than eat and sleep. And I tell you I got a lot of stories about him. I had him in the ring many times. We drew some money in the Midwest. He'd be out there a bunch of, he'd get you in the corner and holler at you, get up and fight or I'll kill you. He would do it too. He'd have people sitting ringside. They'd holler at him and yell at him, and they'd jump out of the ring and they'd just go scared to death. Just with him being there.
Is there any truth that he used to actually rip people's eyes out in bar fights?
I was there where that happened. Yep. In the town of Rimouski, Quebec. I was there, and he had a partner. His name was Rapapapatsky. Real name was John Smith. So, anyway, the story goes, after the matches, they went to this restaurant to have something to eat. And the two guys, local guys there, wanted to, they were determined they were going to mess with him. And one was the mayor of the town's son, and he was kind of a jackass that would, everybody was scared of him. Nobody would say anything to him. You know, if you mess with the mayor, you know how that goes. So these guys are going, well, Mad Dog says to the waitress, "Could you please have these boys get away from us? We're trying to eat." And they kept, whatever they were doing there. So finally they finished eating, and then them guys are out there getting face to face almost. So Mad Dog lets him in the wrestling hall, puts the guy in the booth, just beats the tar out of him, and out come the eye. And the other guy, Potsky, had the other guy in the booth, and they just got beat to death. The one guy with the eye he was in the hospital for 3 months. Nobody said a word. The whole town was so damn happy that this happened. Sir.
Alexis Smirnoff. I had one of my first matches with you in Kansas City.
That was 2 or 3.
You were a shooter.
2 or 3 years ago.
Oh yes, 2 to 3 years ago.
At
you
least.
know, and everybody would try to scare me. You know, they says Reggie Park is going to shoot with you, but you would turn out to be a good worker.
I was a little stiff. I'm still a little bit stiff.
Yeah, but you were a good worker. And this is going back years ago.
Oh, geez. When
you think about it,
this was when I was in...
1970. 1970.
Could be about that. 70.
Yeah.
Because I come into Omaha in
Omaha,
1960.
Nebraska, yeah.
But they were asking me about my belts, so I said, well, that's when I made those 2 belts for our tag team.
Yeah, you still do belts?
Yeah, well, my engraver's kind of gone out of business, but we're still doing them.
Okay, I'm gonna have your phone number before I go.
Well, I'll give you the guy who handles all my business now. His name is Rico. Rico, and Dave Milliken, of course. I passed the torch to him, and I don't do too much. I'm doing re-leathering now mostly.
Really?
Guys they come with those Chinese belts. You take them all apart and do a replica leather, replica of my replica.
Really?
So
now it's made in China.
And a lot of that stuff's made in China now. You see, we made right here in Las Vegas, at the head of UFC. We made I made their belts for like 5-6 years.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll end it at that. If you guys want to strike a pose together to grab a shot.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you very much.
This is Hannibal from thehannibaltv.com, and I'm with legendary both wrestler, shooter, and belt maker extraordinaire, Reg Park.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here and see everybody again. Try to do this every year.
Are you still making belts in 2019?
I am. Everything I make now is it's like working on an antique car. I make my signature belt, my Winged Eagle bar belt, and people love it. And so we make a few of those. And also we've got all kinds of other belts. I've quit making them for the active people because as you're watching WWE now, all their belts now are all completely different from what I used to make. But I'm still up and going.
What do you think of it now? Like Daniel Bryan, I guess, had a vegan belt made, and John Cena had the swirly belt. What do you think about wrestlers being able to take a belt and customize it for themselves now? Do you think that takes away from the credibility of a title?
Oh, I thought that was a hell of a hoot. So I called my guys. I said, "Who made that wooden belt for them?" And it was a wooden belt. Because it was he didn't want anybody destroying cattle out there and making it a regular style, so he made it out of wood, and it's I haven't seen it myself, but I'd like to see what it looks like.
What would happen in the old days if a wrestler told a promoter, "I want to have my own belt. I don't like the belt that you have designed for me"?
Well, I've had some of them. I had the Vachon brothers up in Montreal. They had to have their own belts. The pictures of them. But I had a lot of belts made, and for wrestlers, and the wrestlers would get a little bit of a tizzy. There was some business going on, and they'd say, give the promoter the sign, and they take off with the belt. So I get a call a few days later. The promoter says, so-and-so left here, and he left with the belt. Could you make me another one? I said, gladly. I had one when I was in Florida. Terry Funk. This nice, beautiful belt I made, and I'm watching the match now. First thing, Terry rips this belt off the whoever had it on, jumps out of the ring and wraps that thing around that telephone post. So that damn thing fell apart in 100 pieces. So Terry comes back and said, "What are you doing? What just made that belt?" He said, "You can make another one now."
That's hilarious. And speaking of the Vachon brothers who you brought up, who would have won in a shoot between Stu Hart and Mad Dog Vachon?
Well, when they were in their prime, it would have been a close match. Yeah, both of them were good. I was booked at Vancouver when I first started, and so who's my opponent? Stu Hart, and he was like he actually grabs me, takes me down, and head scissors me, so my head's sticking up over here, and he boom, goes my nose, blood all over, and to imitate Stu and say, "Had a little bit tender around the top there, aren't you?" So then, and I never got invited to the dungeon. Matter of fact, I'd stay away from there. You'd get hurt.
Did you ever hear about the story of the rib Owen Hart played on Stu when he called Stu impersonating you, pretending like he wanted to challenge Stu to a fight?
Oh yeah, I heard that story many times. That was quite a. It was really funny because it was my name and all that stuff. And he could imitate Stu. Of course, Owen. He was a ribber all the time. He was in England. He'd come into the ring, toilet paper hanging out of his shorts, and there were pretty people laughing. And of course, what are you laughing at? But he would be like that. He says, Stu, I think I can take you now. Get a little older. And Stu said, you come right down here and we'll see. He had a piece of the action in Seattle when he started me out, and then he sent me out to Seattle for my first territory that I was in. But he said, let me put this guy down. He said, let me show you one of my favorite whole things here. And he'd grab you and he'd throw that uppercut and throw it in. And I don't know, okay, Stu, I think I got it now. He must have did this like 20, 30 times. And I looked and I go to the restroom, I looked like a robin. My chest was all red, everything. I got packed my bags and put my short clothes on, and then off we went to the airport. And then the next day I was in Seattle. Wow. So it was quite a. We had, I think they put me in what was it? It was a tag match. Tex McKenzie. Well, Tex McKenzie was about your size. He was a big, tall fellow. And I had one of these fancy jackets made that I wore in the ring. So I got my jacket on, and we're hitting in there, and then the announcer announces me first. So as he does, Tex McKenzie grabs a hold of my arm like he's going to go like, yeah. And he lifted the thing up so far that he tore the damn sleeve off of my jacket.
Oh, wow.
I said, I just had that thing made. I wanted to show it off. So anyway, let's see, what other kind of stories I can tell you.
What was the favorite match you had in your career?
Well, one of my favorite heels was Mad Dog Vachon. He's one of the best ones. He would knock you down and get you in the corner and said, "Get up and fight, you so-and-so, or I'll kill you." And people in the ringside would just be frightened to death, and if you jump out of the ring, they'd sit there like scared the hell out of those people.
Man, you of course designed the winged eagle belt that Hulk Hogan wore through his largest run. He claimed in his book that he sweated a lot, and he actually sweated through 25 belt leathers a month, which is pretty exaggerated, but can you lend any credibility to that statement?
I don't. That's a likely story, because I've never seen. Leather might get a little stiffer and stuff because you wet it and dry it out, but I don't think of anything. I've seen belts come back to me after 30 years that the gold plating would be kind of wear off in places, but the leather was double leather back and front, so they were pretty sturdy. And I got a story now with the people from China have make these belts now, and it looks like plastic. And I told them, I said, seriously, I said, Chinese grow cows now with plastic skin. That's what they use for the belts.
So since you actually made that belt, how many of those belts did you make for the WWE specifically of that exact design? Was there only ever one, or was there numerous?
I'd say numerous. I was making them for the Hulkster. He was giving them away for presents.
Okay.
So I don't know. There was some of them, maybe 6 or 8 or 9 of them, maybe. And then when the Ultimate Warrior was the champion there, he'd have different colored outfits on. They'd call me up. The Warrior next week's going to have a turquoise suit on. We need a belt to turquoise. Well, okay. And they said, well, he's coming out there with a green outfit on. And then a red outfit, he's going to about maybe 4 or 5 colors we went through. Same belt, different color leather.
Interesting. And I'm guessing that you probably don't have any social media.
No.
You do have a website, though, maybe for your belts?
We do, yes. I do. All you got to do is take your little phone, Google Reggie Parks, and you'll see my whole life history and all the belts I've made and what I've done, all my awards, a few years ago here, right at the Cauliflower Alley Club convention, they awarded me my champion boss man, Ed Schulman, and the boys got together and they made me a belt. Beautiful belt. King of belts. And I took that home and I mounted it on a board. I call it my fish on a board, hang it up on the wall. Now since then I've hung up several of them, all different. That's when my belts, I got neighbors want to come over, look at my museum.
Wow. Well, hopefully I can check it out sometime. I think you live in Tucson, right?
Yes.
I just came from being in Arizona for a few days. It's a beautiful state. I may have to move there one day, but I see you've got the WrestleMania shirt on. Do you still follow the WWE product?
Yes, I do. I see the difference in the pails and the belts now. They've been making them in the style that they have to be done in China or whatever they do. There's a bunch of jewels and everything, and just the way with the etching system I had with my business there years ago, we can't do that now anymore. So he's got different kind of thing. We got a motorcycle place that has these water cutters and all. They see the metal, and they can do amazing things. Well, thank you guys, and appreciate it. Appreciate it again, and hi to everybody.
Well, I appreciate
See you next year.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see you next year, and you'll catch up with us again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.